Now that the schedule is out for the NFL, it's time to start digging into some of these futures markets. And in this video, what we're going to be discussing is the NFC Conference winner, talking about who is going to go to the Super Bowl, who's going to come out of the NFC. Obviously, it was the Eagles last year on probably the easiest path to a Super Bowl that a team's ever had. I am an Eagles fan, and I am realistic enough to say beating Daniel Jones and then an injured Brock Purdy back-to-back games to go to the Super Bowl, it's not necessarily murderer's row like the Chiefs, who had to beat the Jaguars and then the Bengals in back-to-back weeks. It's a little bit different. So what I have up on the screen here that you can see is just the futures markets odds for every team and a couple major sports books. We see 5 major sports books and where they price it. No surprise here that the Eagles are the favorite, pretty heavy favorites to come out of the NFC as well. And then if you really want a long shot, the team with the worst odds to come out of the NFC is the Arizona Cardinals. I wouldn't recommend that, but if you just want to take the team with the worst odds plus 10,000 odds, you can do so. Now the Eagles, it's pretty interesting, right? They obviously went to the Super Bowl last year, had an incredibly easy schedule. Even the playoffs had an easy schedule, but had a 10-point lead and was possibly a holding call away from beating the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So it's not as if the Eagles didn't belong. Clearly an elite team. Defensively, they lost both starting linebackers, both starting safeties, and their team-leading defensive tackle in terms of sacks. So they have a lot of production to replace on the defensive side. They also have a brutal schedule. They have a first place schedule, no complaints, but it is in fact a brutal schedule. There is a 7-game stretch where they play 7 straight playoff teams, and there is a 5-game stretch where they play the Cowboys twice. In between the Cowboys, they play the 49ers, the Chiefs, and the Bills. They have a gauntlet schedule. Now, that's not a complaint. That's what happens when you're a good team. The Chiefs have had a gauntlet schedule pretty much the entire time because they've always been in first place. Their division's been a little bit hit or miss, but they've always had to play good teams. So if you think that there is some value on another team to come out of the NFC, let's talk about it. I will say if you did want to lock in the Eagles, it would make sense, obviously, to do so on FanDuel at plus 330. Personally, I don't really think plus 330 is that great of value for a team to go to the Super Bowl because so much crazy stuff can happen in the NFL. Let me put it to you this way, right? We can back out what the implied probability is from plus 330 odds. Like what percent chance do the Eagles have to go to the Super Bowl based on the plus 330 odds? Well, let's type it in, plus 330, 23%. A 23% chance for a team to go to the Super Bowl seems high, right? The Eagles, and this is an insane stat, all 22 of their week 1 starters were healthy and available for the Super Bowl. That is a type of healthy that you just never, ever see in the NFL. So the more likely scenario for the Eagles, and this pains me to say, is that they don't have the same injury luck that they had last year. They have some growing pains on defense, replacing 5 starters, and you're probably not going to get 17 games from A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Probably not going to happen. So again, if you did want to bet on the Eagles at plus 330, it would make sense to do so on FanDuel at plus 330. But let's talk about the other contenders. And if you were ever curious about how weak the NFC is, just look at the team with the 4th best odds, the Detroit Lions. Now, I know that they had a fun end to the year last year. Still didn't make the playoffs. They still have Jared Goff as their starting quarterback, and they're still the Detroit Lions. Now, if you look at like the top 4 in the AFC, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, Chargers, Ravens. The AFC is just a gauntlet. Even the Jets with Aaron Rodgers. NFC, not so much. So there's a huge opportunity for the top 3 teams in the NFC, which I think there is a clear line to be drawn after the Cowboys as the 3rd best team. But let's start with the 49ers, given the 2nd best odds. One thing that I did think was interesting was that right around free agency, when they started posting these futures odds, the 49ers actually had better odds than the Eagles as the NFC champion, right? They were the more likely favorite. But the Eagles had such a good draft, drafting Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Keely Ringo, trading for DeAndre Swift, that the odds shifted. Now the Eagles are the favorite. Now the 49ers, it's really difficult because we don't really know what's going to happen with their quarterback position. You know, a torn ligament in the elbow of Brock Purdy is scary. And if you're expecting Brock Purdy, who is the Mr. Irrelevant from last year, to come in and be your savior, it's also a little bit scary. Now, obviously, he played really well last year, not to take away anything from Brock Purdy, but he didn't really need to do a ton in the Shanahan offense. Now, he was able to run the offense perfectly, which is good for him, but you wonder if there is like a next gear, a higher level for him to get to. And the game that the 49ers won against the Cowboys in the divisional round, he didn't play that great. Now, he didn't lose the game for them, so good for him. Like, Dak Prescott threw 2 interceptions. Purdy didn't do that, but he also didn't play great. He didn't look his best, and then he got injured on the first play against the Eagles, so we never really got to see him, what he would do in Philly in that type of environment. They're best offered, as we can see here, plus 425 at DraftKings. Now, the weapons are as good as ever. McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell at the running back position, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel at the wide receiver position, George Kittle at tight end. Their offensive line isn't quite as good as we expect. Now, Trent Williams is obviously a stud left tackle, but they lost Mike McGlinchey, their right tackle, and they didn't really have that great of an offensive line to begin with. So that could be something that holds them back. But to me, I'm actually kind of out more on the 49ers, and I'm more out on the 49ers than I am in on them, I should say. Behind Brock Purdy, they have Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. Now, Lance, we just have no idea what to expect. He can't stay healthy. Darnold, we've seen be terrible pretty much for his entire career. So I'm not going to come in and immediately assume that Shanahan's going to fix him. I actually think Shanahan is going to be incredibly frustrated with Darnold. The Cowboys, admittedly, are a team that's really hard to trust because they've never made it out of the second round. They're like the Sixers of the NFL, excuse me. The last time they made it out of the second round of the playoffs, I was a 2-year-old. I'm 30 years old. So it's hard to trust them when Dak Prescott has mostly been bad in the playoffs. Like last year against the 49ers, he was terrible. The year before that, when they lost to the 49ers, he was terrible. But I do really like what the Cowboys did this offseason. I felt that they had a very good offseason. Getting rid of Zeke will only help the offense because he's not really explosive anymore. Tony Pollard is. I liked the trade for Brandon Cooks. I liked the trade for Stephon Gilmore. Now, I didn't love that they got rid of their offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, basically to have Mike McCarthy run the offense. That is a concern to me. But they have talent up and down the roster. And if you just take away the fact that they're considered chokers in the playoffs, the Cowboys actually do really like as a bet to be the 1 seed and win the NFC East. And NFC East hasn't won, a team in the NFC East hasn't won a division in back-to-back years since 2003, 2004 when the Eagles did it. So it's statistically unlikely that the Eagles repeat. And I think the Cowboys could win 12, 13, 14 games. I think they could have a very good season. The Lions, I just can't get there. I know Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl, but he doesn't have McVay. He doesn't have Cooper Kupp. He doesn't have the rest of that loaded Rams roster. The Saints, I can't get there with Derek Carr. One team that I do think could possibly make some noise, and they're my favorite sleeper team, and sleeper is a loose term because they have the 6th best odds, the Seahawks. I thought the Seahawks had a really good offseason after having a really good offseason last year. Now, I know I just kind of bashed Jared Goff and Derek Carr, and now you're saying you're betting on Geno Smith, which I understand. But the thing is, I just love the Seahawks roster. They had 2 rookie offensive linemen play really well last year. They had a really good rookie cornerback last year, Tarek Woolen, play really well. They signed Bobby Wagner again, so he's back on the team. I loved their draft. Jackson Smith and Jigba to pair with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf is going to be really good. They drafted another really good running back, Charbonnet, I think in the 3rd round out of UCLA. So him and Kenneth Walker in the backfield is going to be really good. And then obviously it all just depends on Geno Smith. He was good last year. You wonder what ceiling he can get to. But I think that if there is a team that could make the leap and become one of the NFC's elite, I would not be surprised if it was the Seahawks. So they are my favorite sleeper pick to go to the Super Bowl. And my official prediction, I know it's statistically unlikely. I just think the Eagles I trust them over the 49ers and the Cowboys. And when it comes down to it, their offense isn't going to be any different than it was last year. Yes, injuries could happen, but they lost one offensive lineman starter, Isaac Seumalo, good starter, but they have a second-round rookie last year, so it'll be a second year to replace him. And they also drafted someone in the 3rd round who could replace him. And they didn't lose anybody else important on offense. They still have Hurts. They gained DeAndre Swift. They're probably going to be better at the running back position. They did lose Miles Sanders, but I think they'll be an upgrade. They still have Smith Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. They still have Dallas Goedert. So my official prediction is going to be chalk. I'm going to take the Eagles, even though no team has gone to back-to-back Super Bowls since the Patriots did it when they lost to the Eagles and then made it in one next year. The history of a Super Bowl loser is not great, although the Bengals did just make it back to the AFC Championship and were very close to beating the Chiefs. So my official prediction is still going to be the Eagles, and my favorite sleeper pick is going to be the Seahawks, and that's it. So let me know what you think. If you're tailing any of these, comment and let me know. Other than that, remember to like, subscribe to the OddsJam YouTube channel. Hit me up at my Twitter handle you see on the screen here. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. All right, everybody, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Below are all of my different social medias where I post picks and plays daily. Make sure to hit me up there. Also, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel as I'm constantly putting out new videos to learn how to make money sports betting. And that's it. So thanks for watching and have a good one.